right.
I just like to say thank you for everybody that took the time out to come out and support. Um, I know there's other people that wanted to come but couldn't come for whatever reason. But if it was meant for you to be here, you would be here. So I'm just thankful for everybody that's here. As far as my grandmother Henrietta Lacks, it's a very profound subject. Uh, it touches so many platforms and there's so many levels to it. She was my mother's mother, so I'm like two generations from her, and I really can feel her spirit doing the work that I'm doing. Not only the work that I'm doing, but to move further and go higher, just like so many other people. And she came with an agenda. She came with the agenda to make our story hers to profit. At the time, there was no written books about Henrietta Lacks, so our family welcomed her to write this book. But little did we know that her book would sensationalize things, embellish things, lie about certain uh, characters, individuals, family members in the book. Um, One of the things that I told her personally that I didn't like was she said in her book that I got my GED in prison. In my book, she never said anything about me being in the military. She never said nothing positive about our family members. Everything was like negative because I realized that she was narrating this story for people like her so they could understand. And I was going out doing speaking engagements promoting this book. And the more speaking engagements that I've done, the more I realized that I'm promoting propaganda, like I'm promoting something that I don't believe in because I know what she wrote in that book isn't true. So I stopped. I stopped promoting the book and I said, you know what? I'm gonna write my own book. And my book was already, it was already written, but it just wasn't in production. And my wife encouraged me because I swear I didn't want to get behind no daggone computer and start typing all these, you know, I had pages and pages. I had pages on white paper. I had on yellow paper, on composition notebooks, you know, and I had to put all that stuff together and sit down. And my wife was like, if you want me to do it, I'll do it for you. And I was like, no, I'll do it, you know, because I just wanted that experience of doing it myself from beginning to end. So that's what I did. I sat at my laptop and it was like binge watching one of them Netflix shows or something. I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. I'm Scorpio, so I'm like, when I put my mind to something, I do it, and I can't stop till I'm done. So I wrote the book, and I took back our story. I took back the Lax family story and told it from a family member's perspective. Now, I didn't write this book trying to sensationalize anything. Um, my life is an open book. That's why I wrote the book. I've done things in my past that I regret, things that I shouldn't have done. I made bad choices, poor decisions, and I paid the price for those. Nobody else know what it was like those 15 years that I was in prison, except for people that was in prison with me, like my friend right there. And, you know, he brought back to my memory that we would walk yard and just watch planes taking off and landing from BWI. You know, speaking things into existence. Before we go on at the day, taking it out was so easy for me when I got out because my body was locked up, my mind wasn't. And I stayed on. When my time came to walk across that threshold and be a free man again, I wanted to be an example. I wanted to be, you know, and I made it my business to do the right thing. And
so family, especially those in YouTube world. Hi, how you doing? My name is Arlene Cahet. I welcome to the Power of Tranquility. And today we have here Alfred Carter Lax Jr., who is sharing his story based upon the book that he wrote, The Shadows of Immortality. So thank you all for joining us. And I have a few questions because I read the book. And I want to share a few. I get one of the questions that I do have, because you don't go into detail about it, about Baba Dick Gregory. And for those of you who don't know, Baba Dick Gregory, he was an activist who was always out in the community talking about, what it was that we were eating, and always advocating for Black people to be in a place of being empowered and moving forward and things of that nature. But you hint at it, but what did he have to share about what it was that you needed to do? Apparently he had issues with Miss Schlute's book, So please feel free to share.
well, I think we're all adults in here because if you know Mr. Dick Gregory, you know he don't bite his tongue for anyone or anything. And I was in Atlanta at Morehouse University. They have a symposium for my grandmother. And I was at the hotel, my nephew and I was getting off the elevator, and Mr. Gregory was getting on. And I was like, "Hey, Mr. Gregory, how you doing?" He said, "I'm good." I said, "I'm Alfred Lax Carr." He said, "I know who the hell you are." I said, and I was taken aback. I'm like, okay, but I thought he was just saying it, and not really, because I'm like, how would he know me, So he said, "I know who you are, about your grandmother." I was looking, he said, because everything that B put in that book, you can find on the internet. He said that book was a bunch of bull. He said, write your own book. Tell your story. And nobody can ever take that away from you. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do that.
Okay.
And that was, and he gave me his phone number, and I'm telling you, I called him. He was living in D.C. That might be him calling back. Yeah, so I would call him from time to time, and he said, man, what did you want? I said, he said, man, you're wasting my goddamn time. And I was like, hold up, why is he talking to me like that? He said, did you write the book? I said, no, I'm working on it. He said, call me when you write the goddamn book. I said, okay. And then I think maybe not even 6 months later, he passed away. I wrote the book, Mr. Gregory.
Oh, he just made the telephone call. Like, he's here with us. Alrighty. So one of the things that I do, just so you know, and when you read the book, it isn't in chronological order, but it still flows easily when you do read it. One of the things that I was wondering about was what prompted you to use that particular format in order to tell the story or tell your story, because a lot of it has more to do with him than it actually does with his grandmother. He does mention her, he does mention his mother, he mentions the rest of the family members, but what prompted you to write it in that particular format?
Well, my mindset was I didn't want to give the reader too much about me from the beginning. I wanted to set the record straight concerning the other book. I wanted to set that record straight first, so I got that out of the way. Then I went back to my childhood, because what made me who I was and the things that I went through as an adult was seeds planted when I was a child. We all go through things when we're children. And I wanted to convey to the audience all the things that I went through, like domestic violence, waking up out of my sleep, my mother and father fighting. I'm 6 years old, I'm having nightmares about them fighting. I wanted people to know that my mother moved. I went to 10 schools in 12 years, which was a seed planted in me. That's why I could get a job, but I couldn't hold on to a job. I didn't know how to cherish relationships, because I didn't know what real relationships were, because every time that I made friends in school, the next year we was moving. I had to make new friends. So after 4 or 5 years of this, I became withdrawn. I started becoming like an introvert. And, it was just seeds that was planted when I was young, and I wanted people to know that. So when I got to the part about me being an adult, breaking the law and things like that, that's him right there. The one just walked in. That's him. Okay. That's the one in the book, everybody. So I wanted people to understand who I was at that point and why I was that way. Mm-hmm. Not just like I was just a bad person and just out doing bad things. No, it was things that were it was underlying things that happened in my life. And not only that, the way that I put this book together, I was imagining this book as a movie. So I just was like scenes, different scenes. So that's how I put it together that way.
Okay. Okay. All right. So one of the other things, well, I one of the things that is very apparent and clear when you do read the book is that you do that formulation of talking about the trauma that you experience, and it isn't as if there is one specific thing. There are a variety of experiences that he's having, and one of the things that I do find interesting is that, especially when you talk about your father, i will I will the way that I really thought of it was as poetic prose. Now, I'm not going to put words into your mouth, but the thought that really came to me was that because your father had this certain type of mentality that he may have been high, was that the case?
Yes.
And that would, in order to sort of translate that into something that would, you're in an alternate reality from all of the people that I've talked to about drug addiction. They've talked about that alternate reality that they're actually experiencing and where it is that they are. And I suppose that was your way of translating the experience that you were having with him. Am I correct?
Yes,
Yes.
that is correct.
Okay. Okay. Um, how do you feel like even your relationship with your father? How do you feel that impacted you?
Well, it impacted me in so many ways. Um, because when you're a child, you you look up to your parents, you look up to your dad, you look up to your mom, and you watch. A child is like a sponge, and when you see your father getting high, smoking and drinking, and then becoming abusive to your mother, like it does something to your psyche. You're psychologically um, scarred, and a lot of times you don't even really know until years later, until you start to unpack and peel back layers when you go to therapy and you understand, oh, this is why I'm this way,
Mhm.
because he was that way. Um, but I was never that way, like abusive. I don't put my hands on women
Mhm.
unless I'm rubbing my wife or something like that. But
And I'm sure she appreciates that.
she better.
Okay, so one of the things that I will say is that um, you correct me if I'm wrong, because I
I
did
sure will.
if I yeah. um, but you don't talk about like what that healing process was like. I mean, we get the sort of translation of all of your experiences, um, some of your questionable decision making during that time. But would you be willing to share about what your healing journey was like, to get you from where you were? And you've already shared part of it with visualizing yourself traveling outside of the country, and you've done that quite readily and quite often with the promotion of the book, but even just talking about HeLa cells and things of that nature. But talk about your healing process and what that looked like.
Well, the healing process is still.
Take
It
a
is
break.
what it is. It's a process.
Okay.
I'm still in that process of healing because what you got to understand when you're in active addiction, like your learning process stops right there. Um, your comprehension skills diminish at that point. And from the age of wow, I think I started smoking marijuana when I was 16,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, uh, and all the way. up until, you know, actually 2004, I was in active drug addiction, even when I was in prison, um, until I went to prison in 2016, 2004, I got clean. Um, so there's a lot of misconceptions about prison. That's where all the drug dealers are in prison. So they got drugs in prison too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do recall a friend of mine shared that with me about his brother and the drug addiction that he was experiencing there. So it. I suppose that with your experience, because you do talk about marijuana being sort of like the sort of entry drug into the drug space, that not everybody does that and gets to drugs that are more addictive. But with the changing of the laws now, what is your thoughts behind that? Since
Well, first of all, I don't think that you know any drug that you do. I think they're all across the board as addictive as each other. Like marijuana is just as addictive as heroin or cocaine.
okay,
Um, so I mean, my thoughts on the laws of marijuana being legalized.
legalized. Hmm.
I mean, I don't smoke, but for medicinal purposes and recreation, if that's what people want to do, hey,
Okay,
you know,
no
you gotta
judgment.
live your own life. You
Yeah.
gotta make your own choices, your own decisions, because just because marijuana is legal, your job not trying to hear that. Your job, if they give you a urinalysis, but some jobs don't even, test for marijuana because it is legal. So, you know, to each his own.
Okay, alrighty, all right. So, are there any questions out there? I do have more, but I want to give the audience an opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Carter over here. No, you. Okay.
I haven't read the book yet. Gary did. So I'm going to ask a question outside of the book. So I remember the feeling that I had where I was the day that Gary came into the room and said, hey, that's Al's grandmother. And I said, cool. And he said, it's Henrietta West. And I literally dropped everything that I had in my hand. And I said, you cannot be serious. And he said, I'm dead serious. That's his grandmother. He said, doesn't he look just like, he looks like, we were sitting there listening to the story. I think this time Oprah was doing, was on a big news press tour. And I just remember me sitting on the side of the bed and saying, wow, that is extraordinary. And I just remember the feeling that I had. And I remember me saying, her name needs to be just like Rosa Parks, just like Martin Luther King, and just like Stokely Carmichael, and just like all of the leaders who actually really changed. And I think my question is, and I had to give that prelude, how did you feel when you first heard that your grandmother healed like the world? That is, how do you wrap your mind around her cells? We always talk about African Americans in Africa, and I know it's another word for Africa, a lot of people use, so being the birthplace, but your grandmother represents that. How do you guys, your family, just wrap your head around that?
Well, speaking for myself, and I can speak for a couple of family members as well, it's a very surreal feeling. It's a very proud thing to know that my grandmother is the mother of modern medicine. Like, we are light years ahead because of her advancements, because of her healer cells. Without her healer cells, a lot of people don't understand the healer cell is used for everyday things that we use, that we take for granted. Toothpaste, lotion, hair products, you name it. They use the healer cell to test these products. And for her to be able to, if you, like 11, they said 11,000 patents have been created from the healer cell. And, not only does the healer cell save lives, it creates lives also because of IVF, in vitro fertilization. Like, it's so many people that come up to me with tears in their eyes, females, come up to me and say, I had children because of your grandmother. I mean, that's a feeling like you can't, like you say, you can't wrap your mind around something so profound, something so deep. And a lot of people say, well, why do you think her cells, why is she the only person? No one has that answer. It's a God thing. God did that. God chose Henrietta Lacks to carry this cell that no one in this entire world has.
Okay, so my question, because you talk about in the book that there was a sort of a settling up, a settlement that was made with, I guess was it just John Hopkins, or was it?
No, it wasn't Johns Hopkins. It was a pharmaceutical company.
Okay.
And I mean, our family, we're just grateful for the settlement, and we're just looking forward to fighting the battle and keep pushing for justice for Henrietta.
Okay. So I guess the question that I have, because I do recall, like, when I gave birth to my sons, one of the things that they make us do now is to sign away, like, any I guess you could say, bodily fluids that they may draw from us, if drawing our blood, urine samples, or what have you, that we have no rights to those. Would you say that I guess you could say the impact that your grandmother had, where it was taken without her permission, without her knowledge, and is that a part of the change that took place in the medical community?
Yes, absolutely. Informed consent is like a big thing now, because back in those days when my grandmother was at Johns Hopkins, it was just normal practice for them to take human tissue from people and experiment. There's been rumors and myths about Johns Hopkins snatching people walking by and experimenting on them and things of that nature. And for a long time growing up as a child, you hear those things, but I actually think those things were true. Because those are the things that these dominant conglomerate institutions do to poor, Black people. The social, economic status of certain people and certain demographics of people, numbers show that poor people, we receive inadequate treatment all across the board, like education, healthcare, the prison system. You don't see Asian people in prison. You don't really see too many white people in prison. You know, prison is a multi-billion-dollar industry that thrives off of black people like me that make poor choices and decisions and to go out there and break the law so they can make money off it. So they're not making no money off of me anymore.
Amen. And one of the things that I do know about the prison system is that there are states that they would experience an economic downfall if the prisons weren't there. So this, when he talks about it being a multi-billion-dollar business, it really is. And we're talking about, I think the state of Arizona, their economy would collapse if the prisons weren't there. And if the black and brown people, there are more brown people in Arizona. But I do know that for a fact. Now we're going to do a bit of a pivot and.
Well, before we pivot,
Sure. Go ahead.
you know, let's just be honest. Prison is nothing more than sensationalized slavery.
True.
That's all it is.
Mhm.
And the same way that the United States was built off of slavery is the same way that the United States is using prisons to enslave people, you know, working for $1.25 a day, working hard, like you working at a steel mill or a plant, you know, and it's just slavery all over again. And to go back to what you were saying about informed consent, it was just normalized racism back then. That's all it was doing. It was normal for them to be racist and to just treat black people like they're nothing, like they're test rats or whatever. Whatever analogy you want to use, that's what they were doing to black people back then, and they're still doing it.
And they're they're still doing it today. And I have to. This is just, I guess you could say it's sort of a side note to at least my personal thought on this is that I'm not saying that there are not people who are, a part of the economically dominant culture in this country that aren't compassionate, but you have to wonder about the conditioning of a people who have been willing to enslave folks. Do not expect a great deal of compassion from them. If you, I'm just putting that out there because I know that a lot of, especially black people, black and brown people may feel some kind of way when you hear a racial epithet, but just understand that that's a part of their conditioning and that they've been doing this for well over 200, 300 years. Just think about that. That is entrained in their cells, literally. But we're going to go ahead and make a bit of a pivot and talk about your 501c3. What's the name of it, and how can people contribute to it? Just share, please.
Well, my 501c3 is called the Henrietta House of Healing, which is a transitional house for men returning home from incarceration. Sadly, I had to close the doors during COVID, but I am in the process of obtaining another building so I can house men, but I am doing business as I don't think they're here yet. My two business partners from Chicago, Dr. Tanya Roberson, who is a professor at Governor State University. So our mission is to go into these neighborhoods and educate people on informed consent, educate people on just trying to understand how can we change things from the ground up. Because when you want to make a change, you have to start from the bottom. You have to get to these legislators, these lawmakers, so they can change laws and things of that nature. So that's what I'm doing now.
Okay. So one of the things that I'm wondering is what would you like people's overall takeaway to be from the book that you've written?
What I want people to take away from the book, I want people to understand that this book was written over a period of time, ups and downs, dark moments, light moments, good times, bad times. This book was written, the majority of it was written when I was in prison. My mother passing away in 2009 when I was in prison was the motivating factor and the catalyst of me writing this book. And I just want people to understand that no matter where you came from, whatever circumstances, whatever conditions that you're dealing with, you can overcome them. You just have to have the mindset, you have to have the willpower, you have to have the work ethic. You gotta wanna be able to do better than the situation that you're already in. And I just wanna be an inspiration to people and let people know that I was here in this condition and now I'm here. And I want people to understand that I'm carrying on the legacy of my grandmother, Henrietta Lacks, and my mother, Deborah Lacks. I'm continuing their work because they were the pioneers. God chose Henrietta to carry this healer cell, to heal the world. Thank you. My mother, Deborah Lacks, she had a burning desire to know who her mother was and to get the word out and to work with this woman, Rebecca Skloot, to get the word out to the world about her mother and her family, which this book turned into a movie that HBO made, which I was in the movie too. Did anybody see the movie? I was in the movie. I had a speaking part. I wasn't just a prop on it. I wasn't just a prop. I did have a speaking part. And I do want to thank Oprah for that because, you know, initially I wasn't in the movie. And when she met me and she felt my energy and she felt how genuine of a person that I am, she was like, you know what? She said, I'm gonna talk to George. I'm gonna get George. This one, she was reaching over, we was at dinner and she was reaching over my plate, taking some of my damn fish. She was like, I'm gonna tell George to write you in. And she did. I had a trailer with my name on it and all that. It was quite the experience. So was that dinner too. It was quite the experience because I had told her I was going to take her to dinner. I was going to treat her to dinner. I took her and Oprah was ordering things, and I'm like, and bro, she took me somewhere. I would just share this story with y'all. She took me to this restaurant. It was just her and I. She had a bodyguard who was a real good guy, black guy. He was a Marine, a fellow Marine of mine. And he was over there in a covert position somewhere. And we just sitting and you know, we chopping it up, talking. She dropping jewels on me. And she ordering all these things off this menu that didn't have prices. You know, mind you, all I got is this little M&T bank card, debit card. And I know how much I got on this debit card. And I'm like, Lord, please don't let this woman order another thing. And but I was able to cover it, and you know, people was walking past, looking at me like, that's Stedman. Somebody called TMZ. Oprah out here creeping. We was just talking, and she was instilling a lot of wisdom in me. And she told me, she was like, listen now. She was like, look where you at right now. She said, look where you was at not even a year ago. I was in prison. She said, look where you was at a year ago, and look where you at right now. I said, yeah, having dinner with you. She said, no, I'm having dinner with you.
All right then.
And I was like, wow. And she said, I feel your mother and your grandmother's spirit in you. She said, whatever you want to do, I'm going to help you. And that's when I was telling her about my vision of opening up
The 501c3.
the 501c3, the transitional house. And when she came here, we were shooting down Fells Point. And one of the guys that I was in prison with, Darius Moore, I should have put his name out there. He was working for Living Classrooms, and we were using their property to shoot the movie. And I didn't even know he was working there. We was talking. I said, man, come on, I'm gonna introduce you to Oprah, man. He was like, for real? I was like, come on, man. He all still cut up from jail. And she was like, oh, she got the feeling all that. So he introduced, so his boss, James Piper Bond, I told James, I said, I'm gonna introduce you to Oprah. And he was just ecstatic. So he came over and he told Oprah what he was doing with Living Classrooms, and he had a transitional house, and she was like, Alfred wants to open a transitional house. She said, if Alfred opens a transitional house, make sure he's successful. He was like, yeah, I can do that. And from that point on, she was giving Living Classrooms $1 million grants every year. And he did. They had a transitional house that I kind of took over, and it could have been a little better situation, but God is God's timing. So everything worked out for the better, for the best, and I'm just happy to be here. I'm just happy to be around my family and my friends. Like, this is great seeing everybody show up.
Yeah, we haven't had like a full house like this really since Motivational Monday, so we do appreciate you. My next question for you is, what do you see for yourself for the future, or what is it? What do you have planned? What's going on? What's going on with you and your experience?
Well, my plan is to retire by next year.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I just wanna have my book on a platform, my family's journey, and I do have a perfume also.
Mm-hmm.
I have a perfume. It's over there. If the ladies want to smell it, I have a sample so you can smell it. You can go on immortalfragrance.com and purchase it. And also my book is Shadows of Immortality.com, where you can check it out, purchase. But yeah, I just want to expand, and what I really want to do, I want to be able to open a school. I want to open a school, not like a charter school, anything like that. I want to open a school geared towards science, medicine. That way, if we expose our children, our youth, to these different kinds of programs, then 9 times out of 10, these are the things that they'll grow up to be. Because if you think about it, look how many professional athletes we had, and their dads were professional athletes because they were going to practice with their dads. Steph Curry, the best three-point shooter ever in history,
Mhm.
because him and his brother was going to dad's practice, growing up around those things, and those were seeds planted in him. So if we plant these seeds in our children, then we'll have scientists. We'll have to expose our children to something other than dribbling or basketball, not become.
All right. So one question that I was curious about is what inspired the title? Like, how did you come up with the title for the book?
Well, the title of the book, Shadows of Immortality, because my grandmother is immortal. Her healer cell is immortal. So I was living in those shadows. Me, my mother, our whole family was living in the shadows of immortality. And when you're in the shadows, you're in the dark. So we were kept in the dark about a lot of things concerning the healer cell and all the advancements that it was making. And not only that, I was in the shadow myself because of my upbringing, because of all the seeds that was planted in me as a child. That's why I said the untold struggles of Henrietta Lax's grandson. But as you can see on the front cover, the man walking out of the shadow into the light.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the light now. I'm no longer in the shadow.
Shay. Absolutely. All right. Family, anybody out there got any questions for?
So I was thinking going back to your when you were saying that everyone felt you feel your grandmother and your mother's spirit, and when you think about like the way your life that is the experiences that you're having right now, and the experiences you had as a child, and the struggles that you're going through as a young person and a child, and I wonder if, as you're looking at the whole picture, if you can kind of see a bridge, like, you know, sometimes people feel like they might be in space and they're like, I know there's more, or I have a feeling that I'm supposed to do something, and I wonder if do you ever think and bridge that?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
well, I promised my mother that I was going to, number one, stay out of trouble. And I promised her that I was going to continue what she started. So, everything that Henrietta did for the world and everything that my mother did, I wanted to tell the story because, Rebecca's book don't go into detail about who my mother really was. She was just painting a picture like my mother was crazy, some lunatic, and I wanted to correct that because my mother just had a good heart and she had a very good sense of humor. So, everything that she stood for and everything that she wanted to do, I'm just continuing that today.
Okay.
You speak a lot about planting seeds. Do you plan on planting any seeds in your community based off of your trials and tribulations as you come out the shadows?
Oh, that's the lady who was up on the screen. So you got here late because you saw it on the screen. You say it again, planting seeds.
I said, sir, you thought about people planting seeds.
Right.
Do you plan on planting any seed in your community in the nearby future?
Oh, absolutely. Seeds that I want to plant, like I spoke not long ago, was I want to open up a school. And I want children to be able to go to school and be exposed to have a good education about science and being a doctor and things like that. Other than that, Like I'm just being me. I'm just being an upstanding person. Trying to be an example to other young men to know that, lo and behold, God forbid, if you go to prison, when you are released, you can come out and do something constructive with your life. You don't have to revert back to the streets. You don't have to sell drugs. You don't have to rob people. You don't have to do all these things. You can get a job. You can get a hustle. Hustle don't mean selling drugs. Hustle means getting money in more than one way. And there's a lot of legal hustles. And when you're exposed to different forms of getting ahead and being productive, nobody you want to hang around people that's doing better than you. Excuse me, because now if you hang with people that's doing better than you, that's giving you a goal, that's giving you motivation to do better for yourself. But that's not saying you're not supposed to help people. You're supposed to help everybody. My two business partners just walked in, Dr. Tanya Roberson and Miss Candace Malone. They came all the way from Chicago. I appreciate y'all. They did ask me, what things that we had. Dr. Tony, if you just want to come up and introduce yourself and just say a quick word about, the things that we're doing, that'd be great. Matter of fact, I'll bring you the mic.
Being late, but we've been running around everywhere. Colleges is to meet people where they are in the context of their community to help them cope. So we're doing a lot of work just to educate people, because if people have education, education helps you make informed decisions and helps you and gives you options as well. And a lot of Black people, we're dying from diseases that could have been prevented. We don't talk a lot about, like, if our kids are on the honor roll, we call our sisters and tell them that. If we got a new Cadillac, we talk about that. But we don't talk about what goes on at our doctor's appointments and things of that nature. And this experience that Alfred was just talking about that happened with his grandmother, that was a very unethical experience. And that's actually how I started the work I'm doing, because my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she was diagnosed with breast cancer. The doctor was about to remove her wrong breast. And my mother was afraid. She didn't want us to say anything because she felt powerless. She said they might try to kill her. So those things that happened back in 1931 is still happening now. And so we need to talk to our doctors. I developed 10 tips on how to make a doctor's business success. So together what we're going to do is develop an education program that's going to be community-based for our communities that we understand, and we can talk to our doctors so we can live and have the same lives and quality of lives that other communities have as well.
Well said, well said.
Alfred, I have a question for her. My question for Dr. Sonia is, as you guys develop your policy, you talk, are you going to be using patient navigators? Because we know that in our community, there's a break in translation and most patients can't get to a provider. Or they're being diagnosed and they are feeling like they are put on a back burner. So how do you connect with the patient navigators? Will you be doing that?
I definitely am, because I'm a big advocate of patient navigators, because the regular doctor's visit is only 9 to 13 minutes. So your doctor, you don't have time to ask all the questions that you want to ask, and he doesn't have time to answer them all. But that patient navigator could be the liaison to tell you about different resources and direct you to a food pantry, or if you need a case manager or whatever. So definitely. And do peer-to-peer education. And it's not gonna be a program that we develop on our own. We'll have some input. We definitely wanna have communities input. So it'll be a program or education program for them, by them, that they understand.
Good, good. See, y'all thought y'all was just coming to a book signing. See that? See that?
Alfred plans to be here, by the way. He said, ask questions, girl.
So do we have anybody else out there that has any more questions?
Miss Mandy?
I actually have a question and something else in a comment. First of all, I want to say I'm so proud.
Thank you, thank you.
And I want to say thank you for being willing to be a vessel to help people who don't understand that life doesn't end in prison. And I'm a poet, I'm an artist. I have a piece called Diamond in the Rough. You are what I call a diamond in the rough.
Thank you.
Because a diamond is just it's a product of extensive pressure,
Right.
time, and then ultimately a process of refinement. Now, without that time and pressure, it would just be a lump of coal. And without that process of refinement, it would just go unrecognized and unvalued. So there's a piece I wrote. I'm gonna just give it to you right now.
Yeah.
And it goes like this. A child is born in hardship. He arrives into a family structure of a less than perfect kind. Yet a seed is implanted deep down in his mind, a wondrous impression of a masterful design. The best formal education sits far from his reach. Wave upon wave of negative influence drags him along life's streets. Obstacle after obstacle dropped at his feet. Time and time again, he comes this close to defeat. Pushed far beyond limits he could ever conceive, taken to the edge and forced to his knees. In the midst of life's storms, it is impossible to see that all of this is necessary to create the man he will be. Thus is molded a man of a character so bold, a rare one of substance, more precious than gold. Not puffed up or vain, seeking no applaud, nor control, admired and respected by the young and old. Unraveling a lifetime of triumph and spirit, one so unique that nothing comes near it, a life spiced with mystery, that insisting, do not fear. His is a testimony, a spark of hope for all who will hear. And I give that to you today. I want to say again, thank you.
Oh, man, thank you so much.
And my question is, and I ask this question of a lot of people, and I kind of thrown off a little bit, and I threw you off, but what would you say was the single most important lesson you have learned in your whole life to now, up to now? The single most important lesson.
Wow, that's a great question. So many important lessons that I learned. But I think the most important lesson that I learned is you can't do this thing called life alone. I had faith in my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. He gives me strength. And I know that He instilled certain things in me. And I know that I'm here for a reason. So just having faith in God, because there's been plenty times that, I didn't really know if God existed or not. I never came out and said it, publicly or anything like that. But when things start to crumble all around you and you just want to know why and how, if there was a God, why would He do this? Why would He let this happen and that happen? But these are life's lessons, and you got to learn from your life lessons. So, like they said, He's not going to put too much on you that you can't bear. So, yeah, just having faith in God.
Thank you.
Any more questions, family?
Of course. I always have to save myself for last. I'm Miss Harris, only understanding. What I need in mind, I know, like I keep telling people my age because I got to remind myself. 64 years old. It's like all the time I just problems. Like everything you wake up is like all these problems. what you showed me today is, even though we have problems, we have opportunities. So now I feel comfortable, like even facing all these obstacles that I even personally have to face. It's like, no, solutions and opportunity. I say that to myself every day now. I gotta come up with solutions, and with that solution, come up with opportunity. I was struggling with this problem. I didn't know what I was going to do. I've always wanted to be a business person. I just didn't know how, because I came from a single mother that had 10 kids. So the only thing they teach you when you're in poverty is how to get a job. So I did the same thing. I did work 2-3 jobs, went to college, all that sort of stuff. But when you provide a solution, and especially when you tell your story that you was incarcerated, and maybe that's because a lot of us need to sit still. We're here for purpose. We're not here just to get educated, get a job, work for 20 or 30 years, never really have any contributions. Even when I hear about your grandmother, I still am so glad that we recognize that she had a contribution. It may have been through trials and tribulations, but she had a contribution that now we're learning about. So I think we all have a contribution. I look at Baltimore as an opportunity, like you said, for us to solve some problems. There's no way that we should have boarded up houses, I told you. No way our kids should be miseducated, and no way we should be broke. So again, I want the whole audience to know that, like you that came late, this was the biggest crowd that we have had in this building, and I've been here since February of last year. We have to come up with solutions. We know the problems. We've been talking about them way before your grandmother was born, especially in the African American community. What I like about, again, you brought your team members here, because we have talented, great people. We don't pull on them. If you notice about our African American community, we never pull on the people that we send off to colleges and get all these degrees and everything. Somebody called on my radio show, and they said, what's the purpose of education? We went through this, and he broke it down. He said, nope, it's to solve the problems of the people. So if we look at 2024, and we have more educated people than ever, right, with all sorts of degrees, then we have to calm down, guys, and say, why are we not solving problems? Because we have to call on people like you. I don't care if you're in Chicago, whatever, we got technology, just like she said, we got portals and stuff like that. We have to be really serious. And I'm here serious today, Alfred, to tell you, I want to pour all of my energy and whatever we can do, like you said, that we spiritually see in you. Sometimes, like I said, we do things, but we don't implement. We gotta stop and pay attention to what he's doing and saying. This is not a book. This is a tool. A lot of times we don't even raise our consciousness. People don't do stuff, so we say, oh, he's like, you know, the book, oh, let me get your signature, and we all get up here and buy the book. Is anybody going to be implementing this tomorrow? Is anybody going to be saying, like, we should have no medical problems? Because she just told us what to do. How do we live a long life? How do we do that? This is not about a book. It's not about your grandmother. It's not about the story. This right here is about us, again, paying attention to two things: solutions and opportunities. And again, my name is Oh, wait a minute, I meant to tell you, before y'all all go, we do have some food. Again, if you can make a donation, fine. Hopefully, like I said, we are financially struggling here. But I don't want anyone to feel as though they would not walk out here and taste our wonderful food. We have just opened up a restaurant. It's called Cool Runnings. We do have opportunity that you can even go on DoorDash and stuff like that if you're not able to come here. So you're free to go up there before you leave, get your plate, taste the food, and all that jazz.
So what are you going to do an audiobook? Are you going to do an audiobook?
Yeah, I'm going to talk to my editor sometime next week and see what we can come up with as far as audio, because quite a few people have requested an audio book.
Okay. Okay, I am complete. Family, are we complete?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
lot of times, guys,